And action. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick. Marybeth had a question about plant protein. And great question. Just for full disclosure, I was previously a semi-vegetarian. It's called pescatarian. And now I have turned, since my friend Bob had a heart attack, vegan. And it wasn't that much of a stretch. I know that jumping straight into whole food plant-based dieting, it seems like it's going to be too hard, too expensive, or you're going to miss a lot, but give it a try. Anyway, as an athlete, I always want to make sure that I have enough protein. And usually when I tell parents about me being vegan, they wonder, because my bodybuilding pictures are in the waiting room. But it is possible. There's a lot of athletes that you don't know about that are vegan. And I don't think that you have to sacrifice protein, because there's a lot of protein, which is what I'll talk about today. So if this is the first time you're finding me, though, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the alert button to find out when I do new videos. So plant protein, nuts. Usually you can get protein in your veggies, your fruits, nuts, seeds, legumes, lentils, and hopefully you'll be pretty decent at being able to cook. But that was my hang-up, is I never took advantage of asking my mom how to cook Filipino food. I've watched her, and I can certainly YouTube it, but it's just not the same. So those of you who are still with your parents, get that brain going, try to watch, video document, because we're really missing out on a generation that has just been brought up with good health and knowing what to do without measuring. Now, in the millennium, I think we have functional medicine doctors, and we embrace functional medicine, and I love that. But I also think old school is important too. Getting yourself in the soil, knowing how to pick a plant, going to the grocery, knowing how to cook. And for that, I am learning, and here's one of the books that I am utilizing. Michael Greger is a vegetarian plant-based doctor, and he's got a great book. And I got this online at Amazon, but my local half-price books, they have a whole section on vegetarian cookbooks. And there's a lot of great things that are out there. I mean, I like Greger's book, and nice pictures, really nice formulas or recipes. So why even bother with going plant-based? Well, because I'm 56 going on 57, and I am feeling the effects of not caring for the last 40 years. 40 years, because I own that part. I probably didn't own when my parents were feeding me, but again, whole food, according to mom, was good. Now, if you keep on accumulating more and more damage, more and more weight, more and more stress, if you're sedentary, you might not feel it initially, but you're eventually going to pay the piper. So my suggestion is you try to beat the disease out of the gates. If you have the idea, or if you're thinking about or contemplating a change, I would give it a try. Now, is it science-based? Yes. Dean Ornish, and I see some people on YouTube bashing vegetarians and vegans, but there's definite documentation about what happens. Now, it's not really in a large database, evidence-based study, but Dean Ornish proves that reversibility is there with regards to clogged up coronary or heart arteries. And that was the first step in saying, maybe I should consider this. My cousin, who suffered a heart attack and went through bypass, asked me about Ornish way back before I became an integrative medicine doctor. I never heard of him, but that was close to 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And since then, I have really embraced this, because I see there's great things. And with the chronic patients that I have, the millennial diseases that I see, multiple diseases, all walking, all on a lot of medicines. Now, it's okay if you're on medicines, it's okay if you're walking, but if you're carrying nothing but a bunch of prescription pills, I'd rather have you embrace natural methods, exercise, nutrition, the proper nutrition choices, proper sleep, meditation. So anyway, there is documentation or evidence. I'm going to do a video soon for my friend Tim, a patient of mine, about eating for cancer too. So that'll be later. Anyway, what do we talk about with plant-based protein? There is protein. Essentially, I'll put some links on previous protein videos I've done, but there's 3 macronutrients you'll find in any food source. Carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. For this tutorial, we'll concentrate more on proteins. In my previous videos, I wasn't full vegan yet, so I put other sources that I had in my videos. Bottom line is, if you're an athlete, if you're young, you want to push for maximum protein ingestion throughout a 24-hour period. And I believe in my first video it was 1.4 to 1.6 grams per kilo per day. And that's max. And actually the studies show as you get older, you can play around with the total amount of protein per day, the total amount of grams per day. Just have to be careful. You have to make sure liver is okay and kidneys okay, because there is a lot of nitrogen that you have to cleave off of protein molecules to access that amino acid and build up. And then most importantly, if you are not moving, if you're not exercising, you just decide, I'm going to take a whole bunch of protein. And you calculate as best as you can 1.4 to 1.6, if you're going to get fat, because that's not going to go anywhere except for storage. So you really have to utilize this stuff. It's not just eating. It's good that you're eating properly or considering plant-based eating, but please get moving, please relax, please go for decent sleep. Anyway, that's the formula. If you don't want to calculate kilos per grams, then I think in a nutshell, try to shoot for 30 grams of protein per dose. And if you can maximize on 30 grams per meal, 2 to 3 meals a day, then that would be perfect. But we'll just talk about how to get 30 grams per dose. It's going to take you having to read a label. So I put my sparkling water here, and here, if you can see it, is the label. It's a nutrition panel. All things in the US have it. This has carbohydrates and proteins listed, if you can see it, hopefully, and the carbohydrates is 0 and the protein 0. So this is water. It's sparkling water, so it's carbonated, but that's 0. We're going to go through a couple different things. When you are going to go protein-based, it would be best if you do whole food plant-based as best as possible. That depends on your cooking skills. Salad is not really cooking, so I mean, a salad is good, it's filling, it's healthy, it's cold though. And in Ayurveda or ancient medicine, whole healing systems, always having something cold is not healthy. So you want to vary that up. Salads are good, but if you can have the dressing a little bit on the light side and not so much, well, I'll just say try to get whole food plant-based. And I want to go through the details because you guys can figure that out. The video I think would best serve you, Marybeth, to see a couple of options as far as supplementation, but still, whole food plant-based is always best. 2 to 3 times a day as far as a whole meal. If you are of the practice where you do eating every 3 hours, I think that's okay, but that tends to be grazing, and vegetarians, or I should say animals like horses and cows and rhinoceros and elephants, they graze all day long because what's in front of them is small amounts. We are omnivores. You can choose to be a vegetarian, but you don't have to graze all day long. If you have a problem with a small stomach, if you have a problem with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, then maybe we'll go a little bit at a time. But if you can tolerate it, 2 meals to 3 meals a day. Mostly because the gut depends on full secretion, stimulation that you're eating, secretion of enzymes, absorption, and then storage until you're ready to dump. And that's a process that's cued and then quieted down, cued and then quieted down. And there is a rhythm that happens with the digestive system, and that rhythm is supposed to sink in with the other timer or the other clock, which is the eyes. When the eyes see daylight, the eyes wake up. When the eyes see darkness, the brain, I should say the brain, not just the eyes, but the brain slows down. And that's circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is best known of as the eyes when you stimulate melatonin, the pineal gland at night to sleep. That's why you're not supposed to look at screens at night. But it's also why if you're depressed, you might want to get a 10,000 lux lamp during the day. But I'm saying this because it has to link. The power nowadays is to link that eye finding or that eye circadian rhythm to the gut's circadian rhythm. So those of you who are eating all day long, it sometimes screws up the gut. And remember, there's also bacteria in the gut. Some bacteria, or that I like to refer to as a city. There are some workers in the city, the gut. there are some workers or bacteria in the city, the gut, that work in the daytime, and there are also some workers or bacteria that work at night, and they dovetail. It's really great information from Sachin Panda, and more is being released as we go. That's why functional medicine is so cool. So anyway, if you are learning to cook, if you are still in your infancy, then try to do as best as you can with maybe finding low processed or minimally processed vegetarian meals, and in the meantime try to get 30 grams. So we're going to look at all these things I have over here, and we're going to try to make them equal 30 grams, and this would be one meal. So this is a protein bar. Now protein bars, I put down C and P. So C is the amount of carbohydrates, P is what we're looking for as far as protein, and then servings are important too. So here you have 1 bar is equal to a serving, the amount of carbohydrates is 18 grams, the amount of protein is 12 grams. So if I wanted to get 30, if I was just going to use this as my meal, I'd have to eat 3 of these. So that would be yummy. The only problem is if I do 3, I've jacked up my carbohydrates to about 60, and 60 a meal, that's a lot. You're going to turn on an insulin response, and you don't really want to do that because there's hardly any fiber in here to offset the insulin response. Let's go through the rest of these. Here's my go-to goo. I take this on Dr. Rick hiking excursions that I have, these trips I have, and it's nice because it doesn't take up too much space. You don't have to worry about perishability, and just take it out of the pack, have it when we take a break or hit our summit, and then I'm done. So this is per serving, 2 tablespoons in a serving. Oh, it's yum butter. So there's 2 tablespoons in a serving, 10 grams of protein, and 6 grams of carb. That's pretty good. 10 grams of protein, 6 grams of carb per 2 tablespoons. So if I wanted to get to 30, I'd have to have 6 tablespoons. That's not so bad, and it doesn't really jack up my carb content, but I have to be careful with it, and it's easy to go. Now, to eat just this as my meal, I wouldn't. That's shortcutting the gut. But if you're in a pinch and you don't cook yet, and you're just wanting to get 30 a day, and you're worried that your workout's going to suffer, this is nice to add to your salad. Of course, if you get things minimally processed, then we have minimally processed in a can. These are beans, and you can take a half a cup to equal 7 grams of protein and 18 grams of carbohydrates. Half cup, 7 grams of protein, 18 grams of carbohydrates. And that's a lot of carbohydrates. If I wanted to get this to 30, I'd have to do a lot of this, almost a whole can. And I worry about sodium whenever you have canned foods, but here the sodium's not too bad. The potassium's high, but still, I'd be jacking up my carbohydrates with this. So you'd be compromising. I don't want you to try to get your protein in and wind up having a high elevation of carbohydrates, because it does, again, turn on the insulin response, and what we try to do is keep that to a minimum. No matter what you do, you're going to have all this stuff turn on an insulin response because there is a little bit of carbohydrate. So far, the lowest amount of carbohydrates to this stuff. So minimally processed stuff. Tofurkey's my favorite. I love tofurkey. The spicy Italian is great. If you're thinking about this, 3.5 grams of this stuff is equal to 8 grams of carbohydrate and is it 30? Yeah, 30 grams of protein. That's for about 2 of them. 3.5 grams, 3.5 ounces. There's probably 2 of these. So that's an approximate. I just messed that up, I think, but you get the idea. So this is tofu. Now it says it's important whenever you're trying to get tofu to try to pick not so processed and organic, and you should see either organic label or non-GMO project label, because tofu comes from soy. As I mentioned before, where you want to get your protein from, you can get a lot of protein in plants. Would be veggies, fruits, grains, legumes, lentils, seeds, nuts. So all those things carry protein. You wouldn't think of it as protein because our classic thinking of protein is a piece of steak. But again, this is a chicken baked chicken, I guess, in case you like the texture in your new switchover. And it is processed, but this per 3.2 ounces has 23 grams of protein and about 11 grams of carbohydrate. So not too bad. You have a concentrated amount, and you can use it to dress your whatever you're eating. So this is where we start to get into some of the other things. Quarter cup of nuts or a whole cup of nuts. Now, a whole cup of nuts is a lot, but with my Target brand, Archer brand, in a quarter cup you have 5 grams of protein and 6 grams of carbohydrates. Hopefully you can see all these numbers. And that would mean I eat a lot of these to get 30 grams. But I would never eat just, what would that be, 6, that would be about a cup and a half of this stuff. And that's a lot, and that'll probably give me diarrhea. And I don't want that, but if I was just going for 30 grams per meal, that would be a meal source. There's also, believe it or not, this is millet. And millet that you can make on your own is a grain. Again, for those of you who wouldn't think grains have protein, this is millet, and you can heat it up in a rice cooker or in a pot. It depends on how much water you use. But this has 5 grams of protein, but unfortunately it's got 32 grams or 36 grams of carbohydrates. So to get my amount of protein needed from all this millet, you can see the tiny little seeds. It tastes great, by the way, when it's prepared. I'd have to have a ton of carbohydrates at the same time, and you can turn that off. There's something called glycemic load. If you had nothing but this, bad, because it does have protein, but it has a ton. There's be almost 60 grams of carbohydrate. That's a bad insulin response. You turn on the insulin response because you'd be turning on the pancreas to secrete insulin because of all the carbohydrates. It wouldn't even recognize the proteins. And the problem is the insulin at a high spike in your bloodstream all at once sometimes causes an inflammatory reaction. We don't want inflammation to come up. We're switching over to plant-based to stop inflammation. So now those are the labels I was talking about, either organic or non-GMO project, and this has both. But that's what you look for as far as label reading. So we're almost done. And for those of you who love ice cream and yogurt, this is Silk. It's dairy-free. So even with this is yogurt. I don't eat yogurt. This was in my fridge. But per one container, you have 6 grams of protein and 17 grams of carbohydrates. Hopefully you can see that. So you can still have, if you like the texture of yogurt, if you're used to those textures, if you have sugar cravings, for example, it's okay. Normal humans will have sugar cravings. We all will crave sugar. Sugar is a fast source of energy, and I think humans have been built to have that affinity for sugar. But the problem is, with the industries that are out there, they know that our weaknesses, and an industry is there to profit. If they want to lure you in to buy their product or taste their product, they'll have a great mixture of fat, sugar, and salt to entice you and win you over and have you come back. The only problem is that usually results in a flavorful reaction when you put it in your mouth. And usually with a flavorful reaction with those 3 components, if they're too loud, you'll miss some of the spices and textures and savored flavors that some natural cooking will take advantage of, and you just douse everything with fat, sugar, and salt. And if you get used to that, fat, sugar, and salt, then the other taste buds in your mouth will kind of get dumbed down. And then you'll only look for things with high fat, sugar, and salt. And so it's not a craving, it's just that you are overwhelmed with those specifics that are highly processed. So be careful. I should have brought it, my McDonald's steak, egg, and cheese bagel that is still alive from 2011 in my, all my patients see it, but it hasn't rotted yet, it's still alive. I would probably put it in the microwave and eat it, which I wouldn't do, and I used to eat them all the time, but it got me into trouble. So there's also protein powder. Protein powder you can get anywhere. I have this. I usually use either hemp or pea or brown rice protein. Both these are pretty good. I like the flavor here. You have to be careful when it's flavored. Usually has a little bit of sugar in it. So for this one, I didn't put the circle, but this has 21 grams of protein per 2 scoops. Now notice the carbohydrates, and I'll let you read that on your own. Hopefully this is coming out, but I have to be careful because per 2 scoops is also 15 grams of carbohydrate. If I wanted to get this to 30, I'd probably be taking in 20 grams of carbohydrate. So there's a way. And then my friends at Now Foods also have powdered packs. You can bring them with you, just mix them in your shaker. These are nice too, the flavors are great. This is from Now Foods. It's one of the one of the things you'll find at Fruitful Yield. And all you have to do is this is shake and go. You have to put it into your liquid of choice. So one packet of this is equal to about 16 grams of protein and 4 grams of carbohydrate. Pretty decent. So a nice go-to. Again, you can see the GMO project here. So I think those are nice ways to supplement your diet while you're working to become full vegan or vegetarian, whatever you're trying. So you have to really be good with label reading. And just the fact that you have to start reading labels usually means that you have to become mindful about your eating pattern. And I think if you become mindful, then you know. You can set the goals. You can start paying attention. Usually when I have patients go through a diet diary, they'll tell me immediately, I can tell you what I eat right now, but then when people start to take account and note what they eat and the time they eat, they actually realize, oh shoot, I'm eating crappy food this time of night, or I didn't realize I'm having so much beer. And sometimes it's so mindless that we just stuff the food or go to the cupboard that if you aren't paying attention, that's where your gain will be. Now, it's not the old concept of calories in, calories out does not make sense. I mean, you can have a full 3,000 calories a day from candy, and that's not going to sustain you. Your cells don't need that, and I'll mention that in my talk on eating for cancer. Your cells, if you want to treat them right, can last till 100. But unfortunately, we abuse our cells, our body, our digestive system in the United States, and we don't last till 100. We last till 70. And most major catastrophes, unfortunately, happen at 70 when, if you look at the longest lived areas of the world, Costa Rica, Loma Linda, California, Icaria, Okinawa, they die at 100 of the same things that we die of at 70. So it's usually heart attack, cancer, and some kind of stroke. Now, if they die at that age and at 100, at the same things that we die at 70, they're doing something to push the envelope to last 30 more years. And I'm not talking about retirement home in a wheelchair on oxygen 30 years. I'm talking about a great-great-grandma watching the great-great-grandkids and or tending to their garden. So they must be doing something right, and it's debatable about what that is. But if you're just going to try to do that and be mindful about what you eat, that's the first step. So some of my patients are going into keto. Keto is a nice concept. If you have a lot of disease already and you want to make this changeover, I think you can embrace keto, but it takes a lot of planning. Keto is essentially high fat, a little bit of protein, and very low carbohydrate. And for some patients, it does work. The information is gathering. The work of Stephen Finney is old, but it was mostly for athletes, and it worked. I think it does decrease markers of inflammation. I think the jury is out about long term if it adds to the heart attack or it doesn't, or cancer. We'll see, but I think it's still, I see a lot of people losing weight fast. Now, if they can sustain that, great. If they can't, I think it's a nice intro, but you can still do keto and be vegetarian at the same time. It takes a lot of planning. And this is all planning. You gotta really learn how to food prep. Whether you do Gregor's book or another vegetarian book, Learn to Cook, or whether you do these things and substitute, and you're you're just working your way into a vegetarian just by adding stuff. It's up to you. And by the way, if you are exercising, keto or not keto, going for 30 grams per meal is important. And I have a video on using protein for exercise. You should try to get that big hit of protein within about half hour to 3 hours post-exercise, if you can. Now, I'm not even going to talk about fasting at this point in time, but that's important as well. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea. You always want to make sure you watch your metrics if you're going vegetarian. Protein is one thing, but sometimes when you go pure protein, you got to be careful because the average vegetarian diet, you are going to lack a couple things. Number one would be B12, that's cyanocobalamin. There's some people that say that you stay away from cyano and go methylcobalamin. Doesn't matter. I don't think you'll develop cyanide toxicity with this. Usually it's one shot every 2 to 4 weeks B12 till you get your own stores. You can get a lot of B12 from nuts. And then there's iron. Sometimes, especially if you're a menstruating female, iron can be a low source. So the only problem with iron is that it does cause a little bit of stomach upset. B12, it goes through injection. If you want to take pill form, that's fine too. There's something of the injection that gives my patients energy rushes versus the pill. Both pill and injection get levels up eventually in about 3 to 6 months, but the shot always gives energy. I'm not sure why. Iron, you might get a little bit of improvement in energy, or you might just find your thyroid works better, but just watch out for the constipation that's associated with this stuff. I like the liquid iron, so you just have to know your metrics before you embark on this. Metrics means blood test. Measurements of your waist to hip ratio, your weight, your BMI, your blood pressure, your heart rate. Sometimes if you want to be real fancy, you can use your watches and get VO2 max. And then the cholesterol, sugar, thyroid, B12, iron levels, vitamin D, magnesium, CBC, all those are important. So ask your doc if they can do it, and then do it about 3 months later to 6 months later to see if there's a comparison as you continue on your journey. If you have deficiencies, you fix them and you check about 3 to 6 months later to see if those supplements are getting in. Finally, you gotta be careful about hitting the wall. When you have an exercise routine and you're really working it, you'll notice a little bit of a drop off when you switch off. Not just because it's plant-based, but you are switching off. The fact that you're mindful with your diet usually means that you're watching, and usually with your watching, you decrease. Most of us that pay attention will decrease the total volume. When you decrease total volume, you decrease total calories per day, total carbohydrates per day, total proteins, total fats per day. When that goes down a little bit, you will start to feel a fuel source shortage. And sometimes if you're a high intensity interval trainer, you might hit the wall. So be careful you don't hit the wall. It's not just that you can't exercise any further or you get gassed. Sometimes you'll hit the wall as far as an old injury, like a fibromyalgia point like mine. If I know that I'm fasting now, and I knew this morning that I was able to tolerate a 10-hour fast, but oof, my headache, my trigger point started up again. And whether it's because I'm now 12 to 13 weeks into my vegan practice and I'm fasting, I can't tell. But my blood tests are coming, so I'll post them when they come up. Anyway, hitting the wall, be careful. Dial it in, be careful with your exercise. Either dial down the exercise or dial up your fuel source, your building block source. Finally, it's important because if you're not planning, I always go old school. So I like calendars. Now, this is my calendar for January. I don't have my December calendar here. So January, February, and then March. I'm already counting down the time to March because I have my next hiking excursion coming up here. I gotta start training. Not only so it keeps me in the game because we just made an electronic medical record change, and it's taking so much time to get through this. I'm sorry this is so late of a post, but I always have to keep this on my fridge because I have to, or somewhere accessible where I can see it every time I pass by it to remind me, whoop, I didn't do my exercises, or I gotta be training. I gotta get my mileage down. I have to be preparing. So it's nice when you have accountability. Whether you have a coach or a calendar, it's important to have accountability. So because there's always some other priority that comes up, whether it's a sick kid or a work project or an injury, God forbid. Something else comes up and then it pushes down our experiment, and if you're not really fully invested in this, it can be frustrating. Just monitoring and writing down is frustrating for some people. So Marybeth, good question. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of idea, and all you other viewers, if you have any questions or your comments on how you guys get protein, please post them down below. Otherwise, I will see you next clinic.